In this video, we'll talk about integers and opposites. An integer is the set of all natural numbers. So natural numbers like we would count 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. They're opposites. So what is the opposite of 1? The opposite of 1 is negative 1. That's how we can read that negative sign. We can say negative 1 or the opposite of 1. The opposite of 2 is negative 2. Opposite of 3 is negative 3. Opposite of 4 is negative 4, and so on. So we have natural numbers, their opposites, and 0. That is the set of integers. As you can see here, there are no fractions and no decimals. No fractions and no decimals. Fractions and decimals are not integers. Okay, we can say that all of these numbers to the right of 0, so from here on, these are greater than 0. They're greater than 0. All the numbers to the left of 0, so from negative 1 on, these numbers are less than 0. Okay, 0, we would say 0 is neither positive or negative. Neither positive or negative. 0 is its own opposite. 0, its own opposite. Okay, now if we take, let's say, 4 and negative 4, we would say these are opposites. Why are they opposites? Well, they're both 4 units, 4 spaces from 0. We could say, how far is negative 4 away from 0? Well, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 away from 0. How far is 4 away from 0? Well, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 away from 0. Opposites are always the same distance from 0. Okay, now let's go to some more examples of integers. We could say, here are some examples. 5 is an integer. Negative 21 is an integer. 9 is an integer. Those are just a few examples of other integers. Here are some examples of non-integers. These are not integers. Like 3 and 3/4, that would not be an integer because it's a mixed number. There are no fractions or mixed numbers that are integers. Negative 6.32, not an integer, it's a decimal. 3.2, not an integer, it's a decimal. The square root of 5, the square root of 5 is not a perfect square, it's going to be a decimal, it's going to be 2 point something, and so it's going to come out as a decimal. No decimals are integers. Or if you see pi, right? Pi is a number that we approximate to be 3.14. Therefore, it's not an integer. Let's talk about some integers in the real world. So if we say a football team had a loss of 7 yards. Well, if they lose 7 yards, they're going backwards. And so we represent that with a negative sign. They're going backwards 7 yards. So the integer we could write for this situation would be negative 7. In letter B, if we have 9 inches of snowfall, that means we have positive 9 or just 9 inches of snowfall. So 9 would be the integer to represent that situation. If I gain 11 pounds, I could put plus 11 or just positive 11. And if it's positive, we don't normally write a plus sign before it. It's just understood to be positive. So 11 would be the integer to represent that situation. Letter D, 10 degrees below 0. If it's below 0, that's negative, so negative 10 would be the integer. If I deposit $700 into my bank account, that means money is going in. Deposit means money is going in, and so this needs to be positive 700. That's going into my account. Letter F in golf, if I'm 8 strokes under par, well, if I'm under par, that's represented by a negative sign. I am under 8 strokes. I'm under par by 8 strokes, so the integer would be negative 8. And letter G, if I'm 350 feet below sea level, if I am below sea level, that's represented by a negative sign. I am 350 feet below sea level. So negative 350 would be the integer for that situation. Finally, let's look at a couple of opposite examples. Okay, so here in letter A, we have the opposite of negative 7. The opposite of negative 7. Well, what is the opposite of negative 7? The opposite of negative 7 would be 7, right? Letter B, we have the opposite of negative 15. this is going to be negative 15. Okay, here is a general rule to use. Whenever you're giving negatives like this, if there are an even number of negatives, then your answer will be positive. Like in letter A, I have 1, 2 negatives. 2 is an even number, so I have an even number of negatives. Therefore, my answer will be positive, like here, positive 7. And if I have an odd number of negatives, like I did in letter B, I had 1, 2, 3 negative signs, and 3 is an odd number. If I have an odd number of negatives, my answer will be negative, like here, negative 15.